I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, the Saudi Crown Prince officially recognizes Israel's right to exist. Prime Minister Netanyahu cancels the just-announced UN deal to resettle asylum seekers. And keep on watching because we're about to reveal why Israelis have such long lives. Stay tuned for the latest news in Israel. Mere weeks ago, history was made when the very first flight from Israel was made over Saudi Arabian airspace. That moment made the growing rumor of Saudi-Israeli friendship seem very real, and now it looks like that secret may finally be coming out in the open. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has just made a landmark interview signaling more good news on the horizon. ILTV's Brett Allen Smith is here. And Brett, what exactly did the Crown Prince say?
Well, the big headline here is that Prince bin Salman has officially recognized Israel's right to exist. And that is a major thing to hear from a member of Saudi royalty. Because again, I remind you that despite these flights, rumors of cooperation, there are zero official open ties right now between the two empires.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a huge deal, especially since bin Salman is next in line to rule the Saudi empire. And this could be how the next king of Saudi Arabia feels about Israel. What else did he say?
Well, a big thing for me here is that he responded to a lot of people who say, the country is overwhelmingly Sunni Islam. Is this an obstacle to peace with the Jewish state? So I'll quote you what the Crown Prince said. This is a great quote. He said, quote, "Our country doesn't have a problem with Jews. Our Prophet Muhammad married a Jewish woman." So that kind of sums it up.
Yeah,
right
Saudi
there.
Arabia is interesting in that respect. For example, despite what its official position may be, the country does see Jewish and Christian visitors. The empire is, of course, steeped in a lot of past controversy as well. Is the Crown Prince trying to change the country's image?
A lot of people have kind of made that conclusion, I think, for sure. I will say that from a strategic point of view, it could be a win-win for both sides to make that kind of thing happen. The U.S. obviously does huge business with the Saudis, and Israel economy is surging. That's something that the Crown Prince mentioned actually in this interview as well. They also have a common enemy here in Iran, and an alliance stretching from Israel all the way to the Gulf would definitely be something both sides would want out of this.
So why isn't this out in the open then? On one hand, yeah, it'll take time for the people to adjust their mindset, but on the other hand, the Saudi government could lead that change, no?
Well, peace with the Palestinians is definitely going to be a major obstacle there until there's some kind of peaceful arrangement, and it's going to have to include Jerusalem and the Temple Mount. It's going to be hard for the Saudis to openly embrace relations. I mean, just now, a day after his son's interview, the Saudi king has reaffirmed that the kingdom does totally back the Palestinian struggle for a state. So, and there's no mention of Israel in that statement.
Quite a roller coaster. Well, we'll see where this all goes. Thanks for joining us, Britt.
Sure.
It's been mere hours since the Israeli Prime Minister has announced a landmark UN deal to resettle thousands of African asylum seekers and grant them refugee protection status. But now it looks like Netanyahu is taking back his promise. The Israeli leader says he's canceling the deal completely, a move that puts a big question mark back on the entire issue.
Analysts, however, say that internal pressure from his coalition is the real reason for such a sudden and total backflip. Netanyahu's announcement of the deal to resettle half of the country's 38,000 asylum seekers was met with cheers from much of the international community. Word is that many members of Netanyahu's own party, however, had no idea the PM had inked any such deal until the moment he announced it. This prompted several of them to denounce the move all over social media. In a video posted to his own Facebook, Netanyahu praises the deal he would freeze and then cancel just hours later as the best possible one.
It's a good agreement. I'm very glad that we achieved it with the UN Commissioner on refugees. It enables us to solve this problem in a way that protects the interests of the State of Israel and gives a solution to the residents of southern Tel Aviv and other neighborhoods, and also for the people who came into Israel. I think it's a good solution.
Netanyahu also blames Rwanda for caving into international protest for the collapse of the previous deal to forcibly deport or else jail asylum seekers. Rwanda now denies there ever was such a deal in the first place, but reports say Rwanda reneged on the controversial arrangement after Israel's high court required the country to ensure the safety of any African migrants deported there. By canceling an international deal he's already signed on and admitting openly that the government's previous plan did not legally hold water, Netanyahu will now essentially be starting from scratch on this, a proposition troubling to both sides of this debate.
Joining me now with more on this developing issue is the editor-in-chief at mida.org.il, Ziv Maor, and public policy coordinator at the Hotline for Refugees and Migrants, Sigal Rosen. All right, let's begin with what was wrong with the deal? Why did Bennett, Shaked, other Knesset members object to this deal?
First of all, the promise that Netanyahu made to the public is to dismiss all the illegal aliens that are staying currently in South Tel Aviv and throughout Israel. To begin with, leaving 16,000 of them in Israel is breaking his promise. And secondly, most of the public does not believe any agreement with the UN. The UN has proven itself to be a body that one cannot count on its promises and its promise. So about the other 16,000, the public did not believe that they will eventually be leaving. Now, this, to add this to the fact that Germany and Italy yesterday evening already declared that they've got nothing to do with this agreement.
What is your take on this?
Well, Netanyahu just threw the names Germany and Italy. No one said that the countries are Germany and Italy. Actually, what is happening here is that Netanyahu managed to achieve a marvelous deal to get out from Israel almost half of the asylum seekers who are here. Right now, when going back on this deal is actually, well, all the asylum seekers that are now in Israel will stay in Israel because there is no way the High Court of Justice will allow the deportation of all these asylum seekers to countries that Netanyahu himself said he has no agreement with.
Right.
So now we cannot go back.
Well, you know, when initially announcing the deal, Netanyahu essentially acknowledged that the previous deportation plan was illegal and unenforceable. So what is the plan here? Draw this thing out until making the deal anyhow? I mean, what
The
is
only way
happening?
out, the only way out is to act like a democracy and to stop obeying to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court acts illegally. It's bullying the public and bullying the government. And the ultimatum that was set up to April 9th is illegal, has got no grounds whatsoever. And the right thing to do is for Netanyahu to take the time to scratch out a new, better deal to deport all the infiltrators, regardless of what the court says, because the court has ran out of credit from the public and is acting as if he is in control here, and this is not the way
What is
democracy
your
acts.
The court is trying to do his job. That's the job of the High Court of Justice in democracy.
What is the job of now, let me do something. When
the government is trying to do illegal actions, that's exactly the court's
when
role
two
in
parties
democracy to
come,
prevent that
when two
from
parties
happening.
come into court everywhere in the world, and there is, let's say, a contract or an agreement like that, and something happens, let's say a third party, say the state of Rwanda, would not apply to its to the agreement and to its commitment through the agreement, something happens. Normal courts give prolonged time for the parties to do what it takes.
Well,
the fact
it's been
that
4 years.
Yes, it is indeed.
Years.
Yes,
It's been 4 years that personally I follow up the people who moved to Rwanda and Uganda. They were, all of them, and we have 230 testimonies by now and so many affidavits that prove they cannot stay there.
those
They did
affidavits
not
were found
receive-
irreliable by the Supreme Court just
no
4
way.
months ago.
No, you are
Well-
you are wrong.
I-
You are
you know-
misleading the audience.
Well,
This is wrong.
So Netanyahu also signed a preliminary agreement with the United Nations. Isn't he beholden to this deal anyhow, even though he's now reneging?
We don't know. We don't know what he's doing and why he's doing it. Well, actually, we do know why he's doing it, because Bennett and Saar are pushing him from the white side, and this is why he's doing it. But
This
it
is not Bennett
the-
Saar, this is the Israeli public.
No, the Israeli public is against the deportation of refugees.
Did you make any kind of referendum? Because the last referendum that was, which
Yes,
was the
we saw it.
elections in 2015, gave quite a different
Yes,
answer.
but at that time, Israel did not try to force refugees to be deported against
The
their
public
will.
expects
Is it-
the government to force them against their will.
No,
This
the-
is what needs to be
no,
happened
the
because
public-
they entered here against our will.
The public wants people to be away from South Tel Aviv in such large numbers.
Out of
and this
Israel.
can be achieved only if Netanyahu will accept this deal and allow half of the people to get out of the country, and then the other half can be dispersed in other parts of Israel. But by going back on this deal, the result will be that everyone will stay where they
The
are.
only way
because
out
there
is to
no
stand
way.
up to the promises he gave and find a way to deport all of
But
them.
there is no way to deport. There is no legal way. That's exactly why the court will not
The
allow
law
it.
Well,
is
that's a
decided in the
question. I mean,
Knesset, not in the court.
Was this deal just canceled publicly, in your opinions? Is there perhaps, the chance that Netanyahu is trying to rally support in the background right now, and it's going to continue, forth with this plan?
I cannot foretell what will be in the future, but what I can say that if the public pressure that is currently put upon Netanyahu will end in a result that the UN will agree to take a larger number of the asylum seekers, not the asylum seekers, they should stay, but of the illegal aliens to here. If this is what happens through the pressure on Netanyahu, there will be a pressure on the UN, then a modified deal will be
the issues
better.
of asylum seekers and that terminology, it's interesting in of itself because
Yeah.
Israel has essentially refused to grant refugee status to many
No,
of
they
these
did not
people
apply.
that are
They
considered.
were unable to apply.
No, they were able to apply.
No, there is no way to apply.
Actually, there is, and thousands of Ukrainian and Georgian asylum seekers that came here applied and got answered.
Yes,
The fact that the immigrants from Africa do not apply is something needs to be looking into. But the fact is that the
Right.
offices.
Well, there's many barriers that exist there too. But I guess
But even if there were not these barriers, I mean, all around the world, the Eritreans are being recognized as refugees.
This is
90%
no longer true.
of them.
This is no
It
longer
is,
true.
It is.
The
it
European
is.
Court and the UK Supreme Court acknowledged that Eritrea is currently safe to go back to, and thousands
you are making a
of
mistake.
former.
It was the immigration authority in the UK who said so, and all
It
these
was accepted by the House of Lords, but the
No.
fact is that thousands of former refugees are currently traveling back to Eritrea after the
No,
the UN.
No, there are migrant workers from Eritrea who are regime supporters, and they go back and forward from all kinds of countries. But I'm talking about refugees, about those who run away from Eritrea, who run away from
There
the
is no
endless
deep
military
dispute that
service.
the refugees
here's
have
a
the right
question
to,
right now.
to
I
get
mean,
asylum here.
these asylum seekers or illegal infiltrators, as you call them, are still here right now. How are they? What do they expect to happen next? How are they feeling? What is the feeling on the ground? I mean,
Well-
maybe you can speak to that a little bit.
Well, yesterday they were extremely happy about the idea that they will manage to actually run away from here because most of them feel trapped here. Almost all the Eritreans I know are in a relocation process to Canada, and they will be very happy to leave, most of them. But today they are afraid again that it won't happen, that they will not be granted the possibility to leave. Unlike everyone thinks, they don't want to be here. Israel is abusing them for the last decade. Their conditions here are horrible. They don't want to stay here, but they have no other choice.
Well, I mean, I would say that there is a community of these people that are here that are very much integrated into Israeli society that do feel connected to this
far
country.
from being integrated. There is a community, it's not small whatsoever, but it is very much segregated from the Israeli public. And the fact is that the life of the Israelis that used to live or still live in the neighborhoods where they are became impossible and unbearable because of the nature of the communities that built there.
And now that there is a suggestion that can help these communities ease the pressure, then they are not interested in it and they are crying that
Because we do not believe in the credibility of the UN. We do not believe that Germany and Italy, countries that funded the campaign to leave those people here for the last years, will
it's
suddenly
not Germany
support.
and Italy. The countries are
the
Canada.
UNHCR is a
are-
different entity of the UN, but
Canada was already. There were interviews in Canada today of decision makers saying that they are ready to absorb the refugees from Israel.
all right. Well, unfortunately, we've run out of time for our debate here. Thank you both for joining us, and I guess we're all waiting to see what is going to happen next with the government here. All right, if it feels like our summer days are getting hotter and our summer months are getting longer, that actually makes sense because it turns out they actually are. A disturbing new study conducted here in Israel has just confirmed some of our worst fears. It says that by the end of the year 2100, Israel's summer will be a whole 2 months longer and the winter 2 months shorter.
This estimate applies to the entire Mediterranean region and has very troubling implications, to say the least. We all love summer, of course, but the shifting tide of climate is a very delicate balance that affects every part of our ecosystem. Seasons affect plant life, which makes our oxygen. It also affects rainfall, energy consumption, animals, and food cycles, an endless domino effect that leads all the way to a healthy human life. Unfortunately, this new study, overseen by a research team at Tel Aviv University, says if we don't change what we're doing, rising greenhouse gases will push the planet to the brink of disaster. A 25% longer summer combined with a half-diminished winter would be a crippling blow to food and water necessities all over the region. Health risks would also skyrocket as pollution worsened and overall quality of life would take a major hit. Israel considers itself a world leader in using clean solar energy for its water heating. Recent studies, however, say the country only collects less than 2% of its power needs from renewable sources. Despite the fact that Israel receives over 300 days of sunshine per year, the government has preferred developing natural gas power instead of solar. But given the danger that could be on the horizon, according to this study, that all may begin to change.
The United States Supreme Court has just dealt what may be the final blow to victims of terrorism seeking the right to sue the Palestine Liberation Organization. ILTV's Aaron Porras has the story.
Thank you, Natasha. Yeah, in the case of Sokolov versus the Palestine Liberation Organization, the plaintiffs, which is comprised mostly of either victims of Palestinian terror or the families of victims of Palestinian terror, actually managed to win their suit in 2015 in a federal court. They were awarded $656 million, but a year later, that decision was overturned, and now the Supreme Court is upholding that appeal.
Well, how were the plaintiffs awarded in the first place?
So the lawsuit was made possible by the Anti-Terrorism Act in the United States, and that law basically allows victims of international terror, American victims of international terror, to sue their attackers and demand justice. Unfortunately, with this latest ruling, a lot of people are speculating that this law has been greatly weakened and it will damage the ability to hold people accountable in the future.
All right, we now know that the Supreme Court is upholding the latest ruling. On what grounds?
And unfortunately, because a lot of people are looking at this and considering this a troubling reason, but the grounds that they use it's in line with United States government policy since the early 2000s, since the Bush era, Bush Jr. era, which basically they're afraid that if they were to award the plaintiffs this settlement, it would bankrupt the PA and open them up to future lawsuits, which would plunge the area into chaos.
All right, well, thanks for joining us with the details on this report. Here's the city of Jerusalem in a nutshell, cutting edge yet ancient. Well, last night the city put on an incredible show that perfectly sums up that duality, a projected light show all across the old city walls, telling the ancient story of King David.
David was, of course, the second king of the United Kingdom of Israel and Judah, but he is perhaps even better known for his not-so-small feat of defeating the warrior Goliath with nothing but his trusty sling. Those are just a few reasons why the city of David in Jerusalem is named after him. Well, locals and tourists alike just got to see that ancient story brought to life in the most modern way possible, an animated light show pumping 35,000 pixels strong at a brightness of 250,000 lumens of light. Not bad.
The show, the Night Spectacular, was nothing but spectacular. I thought the technology was amazing, and it was a great upgrade to last Night Spectacular. I'm a new resident to Jerusalem, and I love the new perspective on King David's life and Jerusalem.
The show has become a much anticipated yearly tradition in the Old City. So if you missed it this year, don't despair. You'll just have to catch the show for yourselves in person next year. We'll see you there.
Very cool. All right, unmanned aerial vehicles or drones are becoming more and more capable by the day, which means the threats that they pose are also becoming bigger. Well, here now with the best response to this growing issue is Yossi Gofer, the Vice President of Sales, Marketing, and Business Development at the Orad Group. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So first, tell us a bit more about what threats that drones present us with today.
The drones become very, very big threat today because of a few aspects. The first thing that is the drone is something very cheap. You can get a drone today, these days, a professional one up to $1,000. Second thing, there's not any regulation that preventing you from buying one or even activate one. And the third thing that the technology become so fast that the drone have an extremely good abilities of collecting data, collecting video and audio, which means collecting intelligence about us, and they carry out something like a few kilograms, which means that the drone, this thing can be very dangerous, can carry out explosives, which makes it a very sophisticated bomb, very cheap sophisticated bomb.
Very cheap sophisticated.
That's why it's become a very, very big threat.
So how does your system deal with these issues that you just laid out for us here?
The system, it's actually a system that can do three major things. One thing is to detect. The system can detect that there is a presence of a drone with a perimeter up to 3.5 kilometers. It's very, very hard because a human being cannot even see a drone or even a micro-drone up to 200 or 300 meters. Second thing, that the system can do the acquisition of the target by an electro-optical system, day-night camera, that can give the operator a full image of the target.
Interesting.
And
so
the third thing is, the most important thing is actually the jamming, the destruction of the target.
Interesting. Well, who is using your systems right now, just so we know?
We have a few countries and a few armies outside of Israel that's using it all over the world. And we hope that it will be in Israel also after we have the regulations.
All right, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, yesterday marked the annual World Awareness Day for Autism. Millions of people all over the world currently live with autism, and while science has gotten good at detecting the early stages of the condition, treating it still remains a big mystery. Well, not if Israeli innovation has anything to do with it.
Israeli developers are on the forefront of several breakthroughs in the early detection and even treatment of the complex condition. Autism is typically difficult to diagnose because usually you can only see the symptoms in someone's behavior. On top of that, different people experience autism in totally different ways. That's why one Israeli firm developed Sense PD, a device that uses biomarkers to scan infants as young as a few days old and detect brain patterns that may indicate autism. And as we know, the sooner autism is diagnosed, the sooner patients can get help. Those dealing with the symptoms of autism sometimes struggle with more extreme conditions, such as aggression, sleeplessness, anxiety, and even self-harm. Israeli researchers turned to the country's huge medical cannabis field for a solution. The result is a natural compound in the plant known as cannabidiol, which brought many of those symptoms down by a staggering 80%. Patients don't get high from the extract, and it's administered simply with little drops on the patient's tongue. Another Israeli study shockingly revealed that women who take certain multivitamins and folic acid supplements during pregnancy have a 73% less likely chance of giving birth to a child with autism. Needless to say, Israeli experts are working around the clock to make sure that no child or adult with autism gets left behind.
All right, National Geographic has just done a write-up on the top 5 countries where people live the longest. This should be no surprise at all, but Israel has earned itself a top seat on that list, and it's all thanks to a solid diet, strong family values, and keeping an eye on how much alcohol you drink.
We've said it before and we'll say it again, but Israel's Mediterranean diet is one of the biggest reasons the country ranks so high for longevity. The clincher there is a substitution of olive oil and canola oil in place of less healthy fats like butter. Add a heaping mix of fresh veggies, whole grains, and maybe some fish to the mix, and you've got yourself one of the healthiest meals in the world. The Nat Geo team also cites the country's impressive socialized healthcare system as another huge factor in Israelis' long lifespans. But as we know, age isn't just a number, it's also a reflection of how you live and your overall happiness. Well, those strong family values employed by Jewish mothers all over the country is apparently a literal lifesaver, and that's probably another reason why Israel earned top marks on another major list, coming in as one of the happiest countries in the world. I can't believe I'm saying this, but maybe Jewish nagging is a good thing after all?
All right, well, here comes our Hebrew word of the day. Unless you're watching The Exorcist, no one likes a scaredy cat. So today's word is pachdan, which is how you call someone a coward in Hebrew. Ouch. Okay, of course, it's perfectly human to get scared once in a while, but if you let that fear dictate your life, Sorry, that makes you a pahdan, a coward. And yes, a girl can be a pahdanit or a lady coward too. Typically, history doesn't shine so nicely on you if you're a pahdan. Just ask one of the most infamous pahdanim, or cowards of all time, Robert Ford, who shot poor unarmed Jesse James in the back while he was cleaning a dusty picture frame. Doing the right thing ain't always easy, guys, but if you don't stand up for what's right, you risk becoming just another pahdan. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight is set to be mostly cloudy but warm with a low of 56 or 13 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow is expected to be sunnier and with a rise in temperatures to a high of about 78 or 26 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.52 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook at Israel English News and on Twitter at ILTV News. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for watching.